All right, well, several major cities across the country now bolstering security at popular tourist destinations in the wake of this horrific massacre in Las Vegas. Extra counterterrorism units have been stationed in New York City's Times Square. Officials saying there are no credible threats, calling the move just a precaution. There is always a lot of security there, and heightened security measures also being taken in major cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and Boston as well.
Yeah, in the meantime, a moment of silence held before Monday Night Football for victims of the Las Vegas shooting.
This time, please stand and join us in a moment of silent reflection for the victims, their families and loved ones, and also for the heroic efforts of our first responders.
But the somber moment, not enough to keep some of those players from protesting. Two Kansas City Chiefs players did not stand for the national anthem, including Marcus Peters, who has not stood at all this season. But on the Washington Redskins sideline, all of those players stood out of respect.
And the iconic Empire State Building going dark overnight to honor the victims of the Las Vegas attack. You can see it here.
Yeah, that orange halo, by the way, that was meant to shine a light on gun violence.
And in Paris, the Eiffel Tower also going dark as a tribute to the victims.
And the facade of Tel Aviv City Hall switched between an American and Israeli flag.
All right, well, Fox and Friends starts right now. We hope you have a good day today.
Bye-bye.
A huge group of people just ran into the hotel yelling and shooting and shooting and shooting. Then it was just like herds of people just trampling each other.
Right to a Fox News alert and the latest on the mass murder on the Vegas Strip. 59 people now confirmed dead, 527 are hurt, following the worst shooting in modern American history.
All right, police now trying to figure out what led a lone gunman to open fire on a crowd of innocent concert goers from inside a luxury hotel in Las Vegas, surrounded by 23 guns and thousands of rounds of ammunition.
And we are now learning more about the victims and the American heroes who risked their own lives to save others.
I saw people in front of me get hit with bullets, and my first thing was just to hop on my friends and make sure everyone was okay.
There was a gentleman that was shot, and he said, "Can you help me?" And so I put him in my car, and I had like 6 people in my car, people with shoes, running just to get away. And
wow, as the country comes together in mourning, thoughts and prayers are pouring in from all around the world. We got Paris, where the Eiffel Tower went dark, to Tel Aviv, where City Hall lit up in red, white, and blue, this big American flag. That is solidarity with the United States, and they are no strangers to terror attacks.
It's just incredible as we wake up this morning. We know what we were all doing yesterday. We have Steve Doocy got on a plane right after our show, and he is live in Las Vegas. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, Brian, as well. You know, when I did get on the plane, I knew it was going to be a different kind of assignment because the people who were standing right next to me were talking about how they had 5 friends who were shot in that area between me and the Mandalay Bay. Essentially, that area right back there, just past the stop sign and that stoplight, was a killing field, with a guy up on the 32nd floor, and as the sun comes up, you'll be able to see the 2 windows right there, and there are some sheets or some drapes waving in the wind. He checked in on Thursday, and nobody thought anything about the fact that he had 10 bags with him, and in there, all those guns and all sorts of ammo. He had maid service for 3 days. Nobody even noticed anything out of the ordinary. Since then, you know, we've been driving around town a little bit. It doesn't, aside from the fact that there's police tape right here where I am, you know, there's not an increase in security except around the crime scene itself. At the hotels, they still check your room key to make sure you belong there, but they did that before the worst shooting in American history.
And we still don't know anything about this guy except for his dad was a criminal that escaped from jail, and he hadn't seen him since he was
on the FBI
most wanted list. And we know that he was a high-stakes gambler, and he possibly even had that room comped, according to some local reporters. Adam Housley's been covering this story, went out to cover the O.J. Simpson release, and ends up being covering this horrific crime. Adam, what has developed overnight? Maybe you could fill us in terms of who he is and some of the victims and some of the survivors.
Well, a bunch of things, Brian. I'll give you quickly maybe the headlines. 59 now dead, 528 injured. Still families that we've been contacted by via Twitter and Instagram and other social media ways that has still not heard from their loved ones. So that means there's still people that are unidentified. Investigators are still here on site, a very tedious process. But we also have some exclusive video we want to show you. We'll get to that in a second. Let's give you a perspective, too. We've had some full-screen graphics that we can show our viewers at home. Kind of gives you a perspective of everything. The first one shows the Mandalay Bay and the concert area, because we're showing you from ground level. We've been around here, of course, for the last roughly 30 hours from the breaking news situation until now, the recovery process. Now, the second one we have for you gives you kind of the shooter's view of the fire, a map of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, the concert area, and a line that shows you from the window down to the concert floor. Now, as you looked at those graphics, now take a look at this video. This comes from a Fox News viewer who I befriended online. He happened to be here with his family 1 year ago, almost to the day, for the exact same concert festival. And he had taken video of his room, which ended up being the exact same room used by the shooter. Look at the perspective. As you can see, windows all around. There had been some speculation whether this was a two-room suite, whether this was two separate rooms. We now know for sure that it was a two-room suite. And that's why the shooter was able to set up two separate platforms and move from one side to the other. The man who took this video is Dr. Jason Huffman. He's actually an orthopedic surgeon in Pennsylvania. And as we see this and as this investigation goes on, there's still the heartbreak that so many are dealing with. Take a listen.
She was caught in the back of the head. This is just ridiculous. Like, I can understand if one person has done something to somebody, but this person went out and killed so many people that he didn't know.
It's just unbelievable. You know, three quick points to give it back to you, Brian. One, you might remember last night the reason why we were tipped off the shooting happened very early is one of our girl that had been interning with us was inside with her mother. I talked to her tonight. They haven't slept still since this happened, and she reiterated to me that when they were fleeing for their lives, they tripped over a body on the way out. The second thing is that people are still looking for loved ones here, and the third thing is, you know, you go to Vegas. I was here. I got a jacket because it's cold. We had a couple of hours down, and the guys I'm purchasing the jacket. The guy I just mentioned. He asked why I was in town. I told him, and he turned to me and he had tears in his eyes. He's like, "I was there last night. The person next to me got shot." You buy a piece of pizza and the guy says, "Hey, stay safe." Those things you don't hear in Las Vegas. So it's definitely a very, not only a sad situation, but a tragic situation that so many people here are still dealing with and will for a long time.
Yeah, been very emotional for everyone. Thank you, Adam. You know, Steve and Brian, we saw the picture that Adam just gave us, that video of the orthopedic surgeon who stayed in that very room a year ago. And yesterday we were looking at the two windows that were knocked out. They seemed very far apart. So I knew it was a very big suite or a big room, maybe two rooms connected. We're not sure at this point. An orthopedic surgeon could afford that. This guy apparently, according to his brother, was a millionaire. Maybe the room was comped. He was a millionaire. He made a ton of money in real estate. He owned some apartment buildings throughout the Vegas area and through the town of Mesquite. And his brother said he had two planes, several properties, and loved gambling and seemed normal, according to his brother.
Right. And we'll see where that goes as they have the investigation. And Steve, they said, how did they make that hole? They wouldn't say it was a hammer. They say a hammer-like thing that he used to pop out that hole to make the room in order to shoot from two locations within the same suite.
Right, exactly, and that's something that we noticed right away because we've been in Vegas before where when you stay at a hotel like that, you can't open the windows. So if he was on the 32nd floor, we wondered, did he shoot him out? As it turns out, that was not the case, but he apparently had some sort of device that he used to knock out the two windows and the two parts. The way he did it then was, even though it looks like it's flat, he had two views from the east and I believe the southeast as well. And that's why so many people thought there were two shooters, because he was alternating between the two holes in the windows in his suite. And that's why he had all the guns as a backup. They don't know whether or not he was actually switching magazines or if he was switching guns. The police are running ballistics tests on him right now to try to figure all of that out.
That's pretty eerie to think that he was running back and forth. And like that girl in the soundbite said, who lost her half sister as a victim, she said, This guy doesn't even know these individuals and wants to just gun them all down.
Right. It's 1,100 feet away, so he didn't want to know him. He wanted to shoot him in the back of the head. Was it country music that spurred him on? Was it a big gambling debt that spurred him on? Did he snap? It's hard to believe someone snaps and plans and plots to the detail he did. That seems like somebody that was very much in touch with his faculties. Some say do a test on him. We used to test for drugs all the time when a shooter like this did something as horrific as this, but we didn't. Meanwhile, Steve, tomorrow, President Trump will be by you in Las Vegas. Yesterday, he came out around 10:45 Eastern time and spoke to the nation. Listen.
We call upon the bonds that unite us, our faith, our family, and our shared values. We call upon the bonds of citizenship, the ties of community, and the comfort of our common humanity. Our unity cannot be shattered by evil. I know we are searching for some kind of meaning in the chaos, some kind of light in the darkness. The answers do not come easy. But we can take solace knowing that even the darkest space can be brightened by a single light, and even the most terrible despair can be illuminated by a single ray of hope. We pray for the entire nation to find unity and peace, and we pray for the day when evil is banished and the innocent are safe from hatred and from fear. May God bless the souls of the lives that are lost. May God give us the grace of healing, and may God provide the grieving families with strength to carry on. Thank you. God bless America.
And you know what? That is exactly what the nation needed to hear from the President of the United States yesterday. He is going to be here tomorrow after he visits Puerto Rico today. And they are words, and they are important words, but the people here in Las Vegas, they are still hurting. Everywhere you turn, you'll see if they've got those electronic lights that they can program. Pray for the victims. Pray for their families. And I tell you what, I know we're going to detail some of the heroes. There were so many guardian angels in that field back there just 36 hours ago who, for one method or another, were able to pull people to safety and carry people to safety. And there are so many people alive today because there were people who, rather than just turn around and run as fast as they could, which would be the natural inclination, they stopped and they picked somebody up, or they dragged somebody, or they put somebody on a police barricade and carted them out between bursts of gunfire. And that is truly heroic, and I am in total awe of that.
Go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead.
Steve, one of those is Sonny Melton. He was 29 years old. He was a nurse. He was from Tennessee, and he's married to an orthopedic surgeon. There are their pictures. He stood behind her, held onto her, and pushed her forward so that she would start running. They ran together away from the gunfire, and he was shot in the back. She says that he lost his life to save her life.
You got it, Mark McGurty. He's a firefighter, and his wife, Kelly Preston McGurty from California. They were in Las Vegas for the festival when gunfire erupted. In the chaos, Kelly's sister, Jessie Preston, shot McGurty, an L.A. fire captain, father of a young kid, managed to carry Preston back to their room in Mandalay Bay. Then he went back again to see if anyone else needed help before calling for help for Preston so she could be taken to the Sunrise Hospital. And by the way, Sunrise Hospital took over 114 people yesterday. That was told to the Daily Beast.
Right, and then there's a Glendale, California firefighter by the name of Steve Keys who was shot while he was performing CPR on a woman at the concert venue behind me. So there he is. Rather than running, he was trying to help a woman, and he got shot in the back. Thankfully, he is expected to live.
Wow. Steve, also Big and Rich performed on the stage an hour before this shooting happened, and this is beautiful. They encouraged the crowd to sing along with them as they sang God Bless America just before several people, or dozens of people, lost their lives. Listen to this.
Kaya Jones. She was invited on stage by country music stars Big and Rich who left the show moments before the shooting started, and she joins us live here on the Strip.
Hi.
Morning.
Morning.
It's got to be haunting for you to look at those images of all those thousands of people out there singing God Bless America, to know that within an hour, 60 of them, almost 60, would be dead.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching, it's heartbreaking. It's my hometown. You know, it was an incredible moment. You see the footage. Everyone was singing God Bless America. It was beautiful. And to think that that was some of their last moments, their last time singing that song.
Pure evil was on the 32nd floor, as the President of the United States referred to it. But then the guardian angels came out. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
Helping people,
You were telling me just a moment ago that your first ever boyfriend, and she is a Las Vegas girl, so she grew up here. What did he do?
He was in the thick of it, from what I'm gathering, and helping people. Someone that was with him, the cell phone got shot, and people around him got shot. He was covered in blood, helping people. Yeah.
I know it's been a whirlwind the last 36 hours, but how has Las Vegas changed?
We've changed in a big way. I mean, I think we're coming together for sure. You know, you have Boyd Gaming, all of the different casinos, South Point, they're all doing free rooms for family. Anyone that's affected, Uber stepping up and doing free rides. You have one of the airlines that's also giving free flights. So slowly but surely you're seeing it come together, the community aspect. And of course, donating blood is a big thing. And also, I think $3 million has already been raised.
On the GoFundMe page.
That's right.
And the people who were thinking about donating blood, there was a line 8 hours long yesterday, and they said, you know what, let's start taking reservations. Come in on Friday. It's unbelievable.
It's insane. But I think, you know, we have to rise from this. We cannot allow any kind of terrorism, whether it's foreign or domestic, to take control of our mind. You know, and that's what terrorism is about, is to stop us from enjoying a concert, a unifying moment, a baseball game with Scalise, anything that is, you know, a normal thing for American people. And I think we have to rise above that and bind together now more than ever, for sure.
Well, and today Las Vegas takes that step, and tomorrow the president arrives.
It's very exciting.
Kaya, thank you very much for joining us.
I hope he has some good words for us.
I'm sure he will.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, coming up, the fight over gun control has already begun. The late Antonin Scalia used his time on the Supreme Court defending the Second Amendment. His son, Christopher, joins us live. Coming up next.
We are back with some other headlines making news today. Legendary rocker Tom Petty has died. Petty passed away in the hospital late last night after suffering a heart attack at his house in California. He was only 66 years old. And the NFL holding a moment of silence for Las Vegas shooting victims ahead of Monday Night Football. Moments later, 2 Kansas City Chiefs took a seat for the national anthem. Everyone on the Washington Redskins stood for the national anthem, and we're being told everyone stood for the moment of silence.
American mourning today after the senseless shooting deaths of 59 people. They lost their lives, over 500 wounded, but it didn't take long for the left, many on the left, to go after the Second Amendment, and they think the problems with gun control.
Hillary Clinton was tweeting, "Our grief isn't enough. We can and must put politics aside, stand up to the NRA, and work together to try to stop this from happening again."
In his years on the Supreme Court, Justice Antonin Scalia fought to protect Second Amendment rights. And here now is his son, an editor of a brand new book. You got to get it. It's fantastic, called Scalia Speaks. Christopher Scalia, welcome to the couch.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Good to see you.
Let's talk about the number one, the Second Amendment under attack. I'm sure it wouldn't have surprised your dad. Is it the problem?
I don't know if I don't think the Second Amendment is the problem. I think, I don't know what he would say about the need to restrict firearms any more than we already have or anything like that. But I think one of the points my father comes back to a number of times in his speeches is that human nature has an evil element to it, and he spoke about the Holocaust a couple of times, and the point he makes about the Holocaust is that it didn't happen in some backwater country. It happened in Germany, which at the time was very sophisticated, very cultured, probably the most cultured nation in Europe at that time, but it was still its people were still capable of unimaginable evils and committing the Holocaust. And he used that as an example that we need to be vigilant about our morality and our values, and we can't let ourselves backslide. And not to compare this to the Holocaust, but it does kind of represent the same sort of evil that people are capable of.
What was it like growing up in that household? There are 9 children, dozens of grandchildren. I know you're the youngest son. You're the second to the last child. Your mom is still alive, Maureen, and they were married for 50 years. It's incredible. What was it like to grow up?
55 years, and it was. I loved growing up there. It was a lot of fun. We had spirited dinner table conversations, and I had wonderful parents, and I had a lot of great siblings. I loved how big the family was, especially now. It's great having that many siblings.
And just so you know, as staunch as he was as a conservative, he says you can disagree with a point of view, but don't fight with the person. You can fight about ideas, but not the person. That's why Ruth Bader Ginsburg is the one who does the introduction.
Yeah, that's right. I wrote the introduction. She wrote the foreword. Just kidding. It was great that she wrote the foreword. We're really happy that she agreed to do that. And it's a beautiful foreword about their friendship. They had a wonderful friendship. It wasn't just my father and Justice Ginsburg. It was also her husband and my mom. They had great social outings together. They
couldn't be more polar opposite.
They were very different, but they had a lot of things in common. They loved kind of the same cultural things. They loved opera. They loved good food. They loved good wine.
She writes about being on a trip with your father and your family and picking out the same rug. She was going through all these rugs and throwing them down on the ground, and she said, you know what, I don't know which one to choose. He said, get that one. He got it in one color, and she got it in the other.
That's
and she said she still has it.
And there were episodes like that, and then their working relationship was great, too, because even when they were on opposite sides of an issue, as they often were, they pushed themselves to present better arguments and be better at what they were doing.
So, Chris, when you grow up and your dad is known around the world and around the country, it's great to have a dad with a steady job.
But
it also is so hard to live up to. And yet he spoke at your graduation, and you had to, high school graduation, you had to introduce him. What's that like? Because he's such a brilliant speaker.
It was fun. I think I did a pretty good job of introducing him until I actually had to say his name, and I mispronounced his first name. So that was a little bit awkward, because usually I just called him Dad. Didn't have a lot of practice there, but I don't know how many people noticed that, but it kind of spoiled the experience a little bit for me, but it was a great honor to have been able to do that.
How much do you miss him?
Oh, very much. Every day there's something I want to tell him about, and still at the point where I have to remind myself that I can't anymore. That's pretty difficult.
My mom said the same thing when she lost her parents. The hardest part was not being able to pick up the phone and hear their voice and talk to them every day.
And my kids just won't get to know him as much as I wanted to, things like that.
Well, they will because of your book. All of his speeches are in this book. You'll have to get it. It's fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Your dad would be proud of you.
Thank you very much.
And I'll talk to you more on radio.
That sounds great. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. All right, 29 minutes after the hour.
Coming up right now, police are working to learn more about the Las Vegas shooter. So what did they find inside his house? We are live there next.
And stories of heroism emerging from the tragedy. Our next guest, a Las Vegas City Councilman, will join us to shine a light on the work emergency crews are doing, even right now, to bring everything back to normal and save lives.
We are back with a Fox News alert. Authorities are digging through the Las Vegas shooter's house as the search for a motive intensifies.
Yep, and we're now learning more about his family's criminal past.
Jillian's going to pick up our team coverage right now. She is live outside the shooter's house in Mesquite, Nevada, which is about an hour and 15 minutes north of where we are standing right now. Jillian?
That's right, Steve. Good morning to you. And over my shoulder, you can probably see the garage boarded up in Stephen Paddock's home. This is where he lived with his girlfriend, officials say. And yesterday, there was definitely a much more active scene than it is right now. When SWAT went in, they had to go in through the garage in order to access the home. Once they did, inside, they found 19 guns. They found a whole lot of ammunition. They found a lot of explosives. Now, we don't know much about Stephen Paddock, right? We know he was a big gambler. That's been made clear. But the rest of his life is pretty much a mystery at this point, and that's what officials are trying to figure out. They haven't found much, as far as we know right now anyway, about a digital footprint. So they're going to be checking his computer, checking different accounts, trying to figure out who this man is. So I know it's a little dark right here, but let's go for a walk. No more than 20, 30 feet. These homes are apart from one another, you can see. And I want to point right here to this cardboard box that's sitting out front of his neighbor's home directly next door. It says, "Do not block the driveway. Stay off of our yard. Do not ring our doorbell." Neighbors in this community say they don't really know him. They don't really have too much to say. Let's pull up another picture from the neighbor directly on the other side of his house. And I wanted to read it to you because it is a little telling. It says, "Our community is doing its best to deal with the tragic event that occurred in Las Vegas on Sunday night that shook our neighbors are responsible for such a heinous act. We understand you have questions. We do not have anything to provide relating to the actions of our neighbor or insight to his behavior. We do not know him." That line, "we do not know him," very telling. They live directly next door to Stephen Paddock, who's lived here for a couple years, a few feet away. So that's kind of the story that we're getting about Stephen Paddock, is either we don't really know him or we've just seen him and said hi. Take a listen, though, because a lot of people, including his brother, have been shocked by this.
We're shocked, horrified, completely dumbfounded about this. There's nothing. No, not an avid gun guy at all. The fact that he had those kind of weapons is just... Where the hell did he get automatic weapons? He has no military background or anything like that. No religious affiliation, no political affiliation. No, he just hung out.
Yeah, his brother says he's pretty much just a regular guy, and that's what we've heard from people who know him anyway. As I said, these neighbors don't really know him well. Something interesting that we discovered yesterday, his dad, we have a picture right now to show you. His dad was a bank robber. He was on the FBI's most wanted list in the 60s and 70s, so police are going to be scouring into his background, his family's background, into his house. Police say they expect to be out here again later today. Guys.
All right, Jillian, thank you very much. Meanwhile, as investigators try to figure out why the gunman opened fire, Stavros Anthony is a Las Vegas city councilman and a retired Las Vegas police captain. He's also running for Congress. He joins us live here on the Strip. Good morning to you.
Morning to you, Steve.
Last night here in Las Vegas, there was a candlelight vigil to remember the victims. Tell me a little bit about it.
It was very moving. We had some elected officials there, but we had a lot of faith-based folks there that just said some inspirational prayers, and all we did was we just remembered those that died at this concert, and we're praying for those that have injuries to recover and get back to their house, whether it's here or somewhere else in the country.
Sure. You know, as a police officer, for years you did training for every imaginable scenario. Nobody ever thought about somebody essentially shooting out a window and shooting from the 32nd floor down into an event where there are tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, we do active shooter training all the time, but it's usually in a house or some kind of a building, maybe 2 stories. But who's going to think that somebody's going to take 20 guns up to a suite in a major hotel and knock out the windows and start shooting down on people? Nobody really thought of that particular scenario, and now we do. We have to really start thinking outside the box on what some nutcase is capable of doing here in Las Vegas, and we have to think of those situations and we have to practice them, and we're going to be doing that in the months to come.
You know, on television, people are already talking about how is Las Vegas going to change? Will they have metal detectors? Will they do background checks? It's too early to talk about that, isn't it?
It is, and you got to think, I mean, Las Vegas has thousands and thousands of events like this one. They're indoors, they're outdoors. We've never had any problems. We've one of the safest communities, the safest tourist destinations in the country, and this guy maybe changed all that. And we're going to have to start thinking about some things that we may need to do to keep our community safe, but we need to balance that with making sure people have fun when they come out to Las Vegas.
Well, it'll always be the world's #1 tourist destination for conventions and things like that. I know people have been trying to donate blood here, and you've got an overwhelming number of people who've done that. There also is a GoFundMe page that I looked at about 20 minutes ago, and it was about $3 million. It's great the way that the world is opening their heart to Las Vegas.
You're absolutely right. I am so proud of this city and this country and the world. And I was down at the hospital yesterday, and you had people just walking up and down the street with a cart that had water in it and snacks, and just they want to be out there to give somebody something to eat if they're hungry. And they had to turn people away that wanted to give blood, and the money that's coming in. I'm really proud of this country. You know, the president on down is thinking about us. Wondering if we're going to be okay, and we will be okay, but to have the outpouring is just tremendous.
Absolutely. And tomorrow the president is going to come and survey the city, which is in shock. If there was one thing you wanted to tell him, what would it be?
You know, I would tell him thank you for thinking about us. Thank you for thinking about Las Vegas. Thank you for coming out and spending time with people that have been injured in this tragedy. That's really the most important thing, is for him to put his stamp on there is great.
All right, Mr. Anthony, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you very much.
All right, Brian and Ainsley. Thank you.
I mean, you talk about things that could be done. Some say that at an outdoor concert, even that high, you can do something to obscure in the backdrop. You could put some type of temporary barrier up. Other people say you could have these outdoor concerts, but one thing the military has that could easily be used, and some police forces have, is a thing called security acoustic. It's a weapon. It's an acoustic weapon sensor. So one thing that would have suppressed him quickly, he could maybe not stopped him entirely, was to know immediately where the shooting was coming from. And there's a weapon sensor that they say that they use all the time in Afghanistan and Iraq that quickly spins around and tells you where the shots are coming from, points at it like a laser, and from 1,100 feet, anybody in the military that's trained or somebody that's hired would be able to take him out.
Great. That coupled with maybe tents. I know that bullets obviously can go through the tents, but the shooter, if the shooter were up in a high floor, they would be able to see down. I was proud of the Bellagio and MGM. They teamed up together to offer free hotel rooms to the victims' families.
Southwest, too, helping a great deal. What about the UFC? They wrote $1 million check to Dana White, as did the Raiders, who might be going to Vegas, $50,000 matched by the NFL, another $50,000 to the victims and their families. Meanwhile, 19 minutes before the top of the hour, we'll check back with Steve shortly. This is the story. He gunned down 59 people. He wounded over 500. But the man behind the Las Vegas shooting isn't considered a terrorist. Why not? Judge Andrew Napolitano, next.
Now back to the latest out of Las Vegas in a moment. But first, some other headlines that are making news today. In just a few hours, our president, President Trump, and the First Lady are going to head down to Puerto Rico to oversee recovery efforts after Hurricane Maria. The president is expected to meet with the mayor of San Juan, who criticized the federal response, calling it ineffective. The president defended his efforts and accused the mayor of showing, quote, poor leadership. And the suspected mastermind behind the Benghazi attacks is headed back to court this morning. Federal prosecutors telling jurors that Ahmed Abu Khatallah hates America with a vengeance. Khatallah faces more than a dozen federal charges, including murder in the 2012 attack that killed 4 Americans. And O.J. Simpson's lawyer is blasting Florida's attorney general, calling Pam Bondi stupid after she said the juice isn't welcome in the Sunshine State.
Other than his just complete lack of remorse, he wants to come to Florida and golf all over our state, and I don't want that to happen.
Simpson's lawyer says that he's definitely going to move to Florida and has the right to do so, but for now, he has plans to live near Las Vegas.
He's never going away. Meanwhile, Sunday's horrific mass shooting in Las Vegas saw 59 people killed by a single gunman firing down the crowds of concert goers from the 32nd floor of his hotel room.
But under our current law, it most likely won't be counted as terrorism. You might ask, why not? Well, here to explain is Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge,
good morning. I know you're upset by this because we've been talking about it during the break.
I'm not necessarily upset. I'm just curious to find out what the law says. What is the definition of terrorism, and why wouldn't we call this terrorism?
Okay, so when we began to have mass killings in the United States, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, some by madmen like this for reasons that are unexplainable and not understandable, some by crazies who did it for political reasons. Some of these mass killings occurred in states that did not have the death penalty, and there was an outrage that a human being could slaughter all these others and not suffer the ultimate penalty. So Congress enacted the Anti-Terrorism Act, which said terrorism is 2 or more acts of violence done in order to affect the policy of the government, that is, for political reasons. It might turn out that this was for political reasons. It doesn't seem it so far. But until the government has established that this crazy person killed these 59 and wounded the other nearly 600 for a political reason in order to strike out at the government to get it to change its policies, we can't call it an act of terrorism. Had he survived this, had he not killed himself, had the SWAT team captured him, he would have been subject to the death penalty because there is a death penalty in Nevada. Had this happened in New Jersey or New York, where there is no death penalty, he would not have been subject to the death penalty. Then you would want the Federal Terrorism Act to apply so that he could be executed if convicted, but you'd have to show the political motive.
See, the whole thing